All right, here we go. It is February 23rd. Spring rapidly approaching. I mean, it doesn't even feel like we had winter, but spring is rapidly approaching. That doesn't make any sense, but this does. We're at Common Sense, Ohio, coming at you from channel511.com. And if you are curious about our show and what's going on, and you want to get all the back episodes, then you can certainly do that at I just like commonsenseohioshow.com, commonsenseohioshow.com, where we have a backlog of episodes where you can check out the little shorts and Norm's blog, Brett's blog. You can look at my blog, but it'll be a real quick look because there are not any entries into my blog. Maybe one day, I promise. I don't really promise. But anyway, we are brought to you week in and week out by Harper Plus Accounting. He was a guest here a couple weeks, and he is in the throes, probably underwater by now, of tax season. And, you know, it's so absurd when I first heard like tax season, I was like, you know, we're busy all the time. I don't care about your tax season. And then you see what they really go through. It's like they do all the work in 1 year, the year's work in like 3 months of time. Yeah. So they are definitely buried, but that doesn't mean that you can't contact them for help. It doesn't mean that you can't contact them for tax planning. That's Harper Plus Accounting. Our accountant, our sponsor, could be yours. So with that, we will plow forward. For those who have been paying attention, I know there are millions, and if you're part of that, the numbers are growing rapidly. We talk about a World War II fact of the day, or at least what happened on this day in World War II, and this was sort of a big one. We had George Pardos from the Vet Radio Syndicate in here a few weeks ago, and we talked about this, but we're going to talk about it again on February 23rd, 1945, right, or 44. The flag was raised at Iwo Jima. Ira Hayes, the Ballad of Ira Hayes, Johnny Cash, I think, did a version of that. Maybe wrote the version of that. I don't know.
Didn't write it, but he recorded
a great one too.
Oh, yeah.
You know that just a phenomenal rendition of that song. But yeah, the Marines raised the flag on Iwo Jima. I know there's been sort of some discussion about whether that was a stage photograph or not, but it happened. It is a historic moment. Still to this day, the Marines celebrate that. I think, did George say he was there and saw that? No, I mean, did he go back and visit? Did he say he visited?
He visited.
He was visiting.
It's kind of a pilgrimage. My brother, who was a Marine officer, visited there, and one of our other guests also visited there. So another former Marine that we've had on the show. And,
it probably is an awe-inspiring place if you're a Marine and you like that history and you're part of that heritage. Yeah.
So the Marine Corps Memorial, the monument in Washington, D.C., is of raising the flag on Mount Suribachi. As you know, that big bronze, huge.
Yeah. I was there just last spring. I was there.
Very impressive. You know, the one, like, probably the most newsworthy thing in the last few years that came out was the guy who wrote just a fabulous book. Clint Eastwood turned it into a movie called Flag of Our Fathers. James Bradley. So he was one of the Marines who toured. He was actually a Navy corpsman, and he toured the war bonds events with Ira Hayes and the other guy whose first name I can't remember the other guy.
Well, there were six.
Yeah.
Harlan Bach.
Well, I'm talking about the three survivors.
Oh, the three survivors. I got you.
Because the other guys died.
Well, well, let's go through them. Harlan Bach was killed in action. Yeah. Harold Keller, he was not. Franklin Sousley killed in action. Michael Strank killed in action. Mm-hmm. Harold Schultz and Ira Hayes.
Yeah. So you notice James Bradley's father is not mentioned there. And so what happened in the last few years, it was always thought that his father was one of the flag raisers, and he was ordered to the tour as if he would not talk about it with his family. And he died and always kept this secret that the Pentagon had ordered him to listen, you're going to go on tour. You're going to act as if you were one of the group on the second staged flag raising because they wanted a bigger flag. The original raising was a very small flag. And for the cameras, for the media, they brought this big, huge flag up and they restaged the planting of the flag. And Bradley, well, he wasn't even there. And the way it was discovered, there was this mother of one of the Marines who had said for decades that the backside of her son. She could recognize, if you can believe this, from Joe Rosenthal's photograph, she could recognize that was her son by the shape of his back. And she said, that was my son. And when they finally did some forensics on the photo, they noticed that the gear of the person who they thought was Mr. Bradley was not the gear that a Navy corpsman would wear. Like not the right belt, not the right socks, not the right this, that, and the other thing. And the Marine Corps officially acknowledged that it was one of these other 6 guys. And,
Interesting.
And not Mr. Bradley, who his entire life had to live this story. And his son writes this beautiful book about his father, and none of it was true. I mean, isn't that devastating?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
And just classic governmental.
Classic, right?
Yeah.
And it shows you that generation, like they would never spill the beans. He went to his death
He took it to his grave.
living a lie for his country because he was selling war bonds. It was the most successful war bond drive in U.S. history.
Yeah.
And you know, it was important for the war effort that this thing all go right. And when Ira developed his drinking problem on that tour, you know, they had to take him off the tour. Ira Hayes died in a ditch. You know.
Yeah, had a rough life after.
He was an alcoholic
and some other problems.
He had PTSD, no question.
Yeah, and that was before we were talking to George Pardis about this here too. That was before benefits and help for those guys. I mean, they were just sort of unleashed on society and said, figure it out.
And he was a Pima Indian, went back to the reservation. You can imagine how much help he probably got there.
Yeah, right.
We probably got help getting booze. Right.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, that's too bad. But anyway, great a great way to start the show.
Yeah.
You know, just a phenomenal event in United States history, United States Marine Corps history.
Right.
So anyway, off we go. What do we got?
Well, I want to show this particular chart.
Right.
So
Norm's got visual aids on his phone.
I want to show this
If
chart.
you would have shared this with us before, we might have been able to put this on the screen.
Well, I tried my best actually to do a printout. So I'm gonna take this right
Watch your headphones.
So
Wrong camera.
Wrong camera.
Wrong
Norm.
camera.
Norm.
Oh,
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
So this particular chart is.
Yeah, you can't. We can't see that.
Well,
Take it back. Pull it back.
I think the camera can catch it, but you can catch the general drift that it's small on this side and then raises up as time goes on. So this is like from 2016 to 2024, Customs and Border Patrol official statistics.
All right.
And what it shows is the unprecedented, incredible growth in the numbers of illegal immigration to the United States.
All of that was to say that there are 10 million people they're estimating that have entered the border in the last, I don't know, what, 2.5 years, 3 years?
So 8 million, the Customs and Border Patrol says roughly 8 million on the southern border, 2 million in other places besides the southern border, and another 2 million in gotaways. So roughly 12
million. That's
roughly.
Such an insane number.
And they can't give you a precise number because of the gotaways.
They don't even know. Yeah, they don't even know.
They don't even know.
They don't even know.
And increasingly, they are seeing people from places like China, you know.
Well, why not? I mean, look, if you were an American, if you were an enemy of the United States, and you thought, man, if only I could get in and infiltrate the United States and start spying, boy, that would be awesome.
Well, they're not bringing their wives and kids.
So
they're military-age guys.
So they're coming in unfettered, unchecked, to do whatever the heck they don't even know they're here.
Right.
So do a quick math. So of 12 million, that is you put New York and Los Angeles, which is ranked number 1, number 2 in the largest cities in the United States. That's 11 million.
Right.
We brought
that's
in
insane.
we brought
Isn't that
in
insane?
the combination of New York City and Los Angeles together.
Right. That's just
So we made
it's reprehensible.
Yeah,
it's
that's a lot of people.
It is a complete abdication of governmental responsibility. And I don't care what side of the political aisle you're on. I mean, look, you want to have more immigration, then figure out a way to do it lawfully and figure out a way to meter people in so at least we know who's coming. Right. But letting people in like this is a complete, just like I said, an abdication of your government responsibility. And then, of course, Biden says, Well, I love the Dems, how they play this game. They say, well, the Republicans, this is the Republicans' fault because they wouldn't let us pass legislation that we need to stop it. Yet Biden has an executive pen for every other problem, it seems like. So if you want to have transgender bathrooms, well, we've got the pen for that.
Right.
But we don't have the pen to stop the borders, which is your responsibility. And then now that he is facing some political backlash in the polls, I mean, look, Trump is ahead in many polls in this mystical run against Biden, should those two ever actually square up for the vote in November. Now Biden is talking about doing something as an executive order.
Right.
So how is he going to play both sides of that fence?
Right. How does he square that with this Ukraine bill compromise situation where he said, I need the Republicans to authorize me to shut the border down.
Right.
I need power and money from the Republicans. And now with that deal blowing up, he suddenly has discovered that I have executive powers.
Right. I have the power.
So it was bullshit all along. It was just
total
lie, total lie.
It's a political maneuver, and you know what's remarkable to me?
And why is that, Steve? Because it's an election year,
right?
And State of the Union's about to come up, and he's going to do a little duty here. He's going to do a tweak with
how much meth they give
with his with his executive powers. He's going to do a little something, and then he's going to do State of the Union speech, right? And say, "Hey, I'm the guy that fixed the border."
This is the emperor's new clothes. Look, this story is as old as the hills.
Right.
It's like he's up there. These are obvious lies.
Obvious.
They are obvious political maneuvers.
Absolutely.
And what's astounding to me is people believe it, or they know it's a lie and they play along.
Right.
And probably both are going on. The media, look, they're not that stupid. They know that all you have to do is look at this guy and say there are serious concerns about his mental capacity at this point. I mean,
it seems to be asked of every press conference.
You cannot.
It seems to be, at least.
You can't avoid that conclusion. Yeah. Now, when Trump was president, people were banging that drum all day long.
Oh, yeah.
Take a company that says do this.
Yeah.
But now the media says no. I forget who it was. I saw her on CNN, I think. She said, no, I rode a plane with Biden, and he was as sharp as a tack, and he was able to do it.
He just got up from a nap. Who isn't sharp as a tack after a nap? I am.
Probably had a Rockstar energy drink or something.
No, he had his pudding and was watching Murder, She Wrote.
Pudding. He's always had trouble with the truth, right? He's always exaggerated or just outright fabricated his resume. He was a plagiarist.
Right, he was a lying SOB from the outset.
His whole career, he's been a liar.
Talking about being top in his class at law school. It's all BS.
Yale
Law School. It's all BS.
Right.
He's just a liar.
Right. He marched with Martin Luther King. He was
on the trains. Remember the train lie? I forget what that was all about. He was riding trains. It's such BS.
Me and Corn Pop. So as I say here most sincerely, frequently, I love everybody. And nothing about this illegal immigration thing. I don't care if they're coming from Norway and France. It's not that they have brown skin, like my brown skin. It has nothing to do with that. And as proof of that, as proof of the deleterious effect of illegal immigration, the job creation statistics recently came out. And since June of 2018, so that's mid-Trump, right? Since June of 2018, all job creation has been non-Native Americans. Native U.S. citizens, Native Americans of all races, of all genders, well, there's only two, but Americans of any stripe, their job creation has been a flat line since 2018. All of the new jobs have gone to non-Native Americans. So you can see who's really probably backing this illegal immigration. It's people who want to oppress inflation effects of wages, right? You're keeping wage and labor prices down by letting this stream of humanity come across the border.
It's a theory anyway. I mean, look, you have to ask why. And I always, every week, I ask why. It's like, look, anybody knows that this is bad. I mean, anybody who's got half a brain can say, look, we should not have open borders with people pouring in over the walls unless, A, you just want to destroy the country because a country without borders isn't a country at all.
Right.
B, you want power, so you're just assuming maybe these people will vote for you.
Right.
Or C, like you're saying, I mean, you've got some other agenda. So
do you ever hear
your
the
inflationary policies are so bad, so we're going to act like inflation doesn't exist?
Well, do you ever hear like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce or any big city Chamber of Commerce, except maybe along the Texas border, come out, and decry illegal immigration? And yet the cities are getting destroyed. We have people sleeping in police
even the quote sanctuary cities are saying we can't take another one. We can't take one more.
But where are the chambers?
They're sending out calls for people to open their private residences to take people in. It's like, all right, now live it out, play it out,
and
practice what you preach.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you ask why is this a weird combination between big business and the Democrat Party, like in favor of this mass illegal immigration? I think the answer is wage suppression.
Well, it's one answer.
I think that's the big answer.
Maybe.
I think in agriculture, in factory farms, man, I'll tell you what, the conditions, for example, out where I live, where that gigantic egg farm was.
Yeah, the old chicken farm.
Right. The biggest Department of Labor fine in Department of Labor history was about 15 years ago, and it was like 50, 60 people, all men, crammed into an unheated building. That was their sleeping quarters for the company.
Making crap wage.
And making nothing, right? And they were all illegals. Yeah. I mean, and this is to keep egg prices down. I mean, so housewives and frankly, men, we all consumers need to ask ourselves.
So let me ask you, but here's the thing.
Here.
But you can't inverse this. This is logic that I always fight. Everybody says, "Well, you complain about illegal immigration, but you like it. You're part of it." I'm like, no, I'm not. Look, I'm going to pay the price for eggs, whatever the price is.
Right.
And if it happens to be low, I'm going to buy more eggs. If it happens to be high, I'm going to buy fewer eggs. But at least let the market figure it out.
Right.
With our current governmental structure. Now, if you want to have a debate about how much we're paying people or how much we're taxing people's wages, I'll have that discussion because that can change the equation. So if we are going to have fair market labor, grow our food, work our fields, clean our plate, whatever it would be, whatever job it would be, or even run our companies, I don't care, but at least level the playing field and make that labor pay the same rate that the rest of us are paying. And if you want to talk about taxes, I'll lower them across the board. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But to artificially change the equation by permitting unlawful immigration, I mean, that's no solution.
Well, I want to expand on the wage suppression, and I want to get my head wrapped around that, but also thinking about the big advocacy of raising minimum wage. That doesn't sink unless I'm missing something.
It's a political jostle. So what they're doing is say I think what was it in California or in San Francisco, they're saying they want $50.
$50 an hour. Yeah. I mean, that's sticking in my head when
if you want to create unemployment,
yeah.
do that. So what's it going to do? It's going to create a black market. So now we're going to start employing people who are off the books, people who are off the grid, people who are not paying taxes to fund all this nonsense that you're talking about. So they can then say they have a high minimum wage, and they can then also go buy their cheap eggs because they've got labor that'll fly under the radar screen, and they don't have to pay taxes. They don't have to pay them minimum wage because they're illegal anyway.
Right.
And that's what Norm is talking about. So my product would cost, say a carton of eggs would cost $10 at their proposed minimum wage. Not market wage necessarily, but you can add market wage. But say a proposed minimum wage, eggs would cost $10 a carton. If you don't have the labor cost, then you can charge $5 because your labor costs are cut in half, or maybe even by 2/3 if you don't have to pay taxes or pay minimum wage or go or just pay people under the table. Look, I employ people in my business. I have over the years. I'm not a giant employer, but I've had W-2 employees. It costs a lot to have a W-2 employee.
That's right.
When you're a W-2 employee, so my first job, where I worked one day at Kmart one time, right? And you see your check and you see what you paid or what they withheld in taxes, but you're not seeing the other side, what the employer is paying.
The top line's a happy line. The bottom line's the unhappy line.
Unhappy line. And the unhappier unhappy line is what your employer is paying that you don't even know about.
Yeah.
And as I think we had Glenn Harper here, it's like there would be a revolt if people really knew how much they're paying in taxes. Well, these illegal immigrants are paying zero in taxes.
Yeah. And I can see, even,
and their employers are paying zero
right
to employ them.
And I wonder if this can lead to, and this is an extreme, but just that, another piece of this human trafficking, that those that are bringing in, male workers on the sly, money changes hands differently.
Sure, it becomes a barter.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
it doesn't fix itself by a higher minimum wage. I don't know. They're just all these
higher
ways of
minimum
working.
wage. Look, this has been studied time and time again. If you raise the minimum wage beyond the fair market value of whatever that job is, then what you're really doing is hurting the downtrodden, hurting the people entering the workforce, whether they be kids or whether they be adults who are starting over or whether they be minorities, whoever it is, because they don't have any experience. You're hurting anybody who wants to enter into the market that doesn't have experience. Because if I have to pay $50 an hour upstairs for a law clerk, I'm not going to go find the first-year law clerk who's got zero experience. I'm going to find a third year, maybe even a law student who flunked the bar exam, because at least I can get more for my $50 than somebody who has zero experience. Yeah. So now the young minority kid who wants to go work at McDonald's doesn't get that job. So now he doesn't have any money, and now not only does he not get that job, he can't advance within the company. My first job
and accept all the benefits that McDonald's actually has.
That's correct, right?
Which they have a lot, honestly.
My first job was a construction worker. My first real job, I was a construction worker. Well, what did I do the first day? Hey, boy, you move those 2x4s from that pile over here where we're going to cut them and do it. Well, can I cut? Nope. Your job is to move them. Right. Now, if they had to pay me $50 for that, they would have hired somebody else who could have done more. And slowly what happened is I learned how to use the circular saw, and then I learned how to frame, and then I learned how to frame roofs and rafters and hips and valleys. Yeah. And I learned I learned on the job. I never would have had the opportunity to learn on the job if they had a $50 minimum wage, because they wouldn't have hired me.
Right. I think they take and I've brought this up to a couple of people too, that and their eyes just kind of going, oh, never thought of it that way, that a minimum wage job is not a career.
No, it's an entry.
It's an entry.
Right.
And if you look at it that way, and yes, I get it. A lot of people, that's all they can do is a minimum wage job. I get it. That maybe that's all they can do. But
I would say, I don't know the percentage, but I would guess a very high percentage can do more.
Right.
So look, the
$50 per hour is only covering the small amount.
What people don't ever acknowledge is the poverty line is not a static, or people below the poverty line, it's not a static group.
Right.
It changes.
Right.
So I once was below the poverty line. I was about 17, 18 years old, making $3.35 an hour on the construction site.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And you weren't supporting the household.
No.
You were supplementing the household, right, because your mom and dad and other siblings or whatever
started.
Well, Norm, I wasn't really doing that. I was supplementing my beer habit. but you're right.
I'm talking about you, the universal you, not your specific.
I got it. Right. But look, I was able to gain experience. Yeah. And because of that, the next year I earned $6 an hour, and minimum wage was still $3.35. And then after that, I earned $9. Right. Now, if I was out of law school, or when I was in law school and I knocked on a door at 511 South High Street, where my mentor, a guy named Bill Meeks, owned the building and had it was a premier defense lawyer. And if I would have demanded and insisted that he pay me $50 an hour, or even at that time like $15 an hour, he would have said, in fact, what he told me is, you should pay me.
Exactly.
And he was right.
Well, because it's an education you got.
Yes, he was right.
Absolutely.
Because of that, because I was willing to work at peanuts.
That's right.
I learned how to practice law.
Right.
I learned how to open a file. I learned how to run a business, and I learned how to advance. So I was below the poverty line when I started, and I was well above the poverty line when I finished. And when I graduated law school, I was able to move forward and contribute to society. We are depriving our citizens, whether they be minorities, whether they be normal, run-of-the-mill people day in and day out,
right.
Whether they be white, black, green, yellow. We're depriving those people of the ability to enter the workforce at the lowest level and advance.
You know, we are revisiting issues that our country had really put to bed 100 years ago. So there was an author by the name of Upton Sinclair that wrote a lot of, and he was a commie, he's a socialist, but he wrote a lot of very truthful books about things like child labor and abuse of people pre-union, pre the union movement. that were abused, worked 80-hour weeks, fell into big vats of goo and died. They just kept pouring the concrete right over them. And we're almost going back to that. So last week, maybe 2 weeks ago,
that's an interesting thought. We got to unpack that.
We were talking about you were talking about human trafficking. There was a 16-year-old, I believe, Mexican or Venezuelan boy working in a meat plant, okay, who was caught into the conveyor belt system and killed. Why do we have children from foreign countries, illegals?
How does workers' comp apply
working
there?
in a GDMFing meat plant, right?
Yeah.
In America.
Right.
I'm very angry about that. I defend that boy's life, and these daffy people that think that they're full of charity and full of love. Let all the illegals
No, that
in.
is slave labor.
Your kindness is killing people.
Well, no, what they were doing is serving their own interests under the guise of kindness.
Oh gosh,
It is-
I'm virtuous.
Right.
Look at
this
me.
This is classic
I
virtue
love
signaling.
other people and all. Well, really, think of all of the whoring and prostitution that's going on by these children who owe $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 to their coyotes, and they have to work it off, on their backsides as children. You think that's kind? You think that's virtuous?
Well, no, this is the same logic of giving your
insane.
alcoholic child
It's insane.
money to help him. Right? You're not helping.
No.
You're contributing.
No.
They say America is now the world's number
like
one
paying an
location of child prostitution.
Of course.
Number one.
Why wouldn't it be? We've got 10 million people coming in. You know, how many of those are children
We've
who
outdone
are being abused?
Yeah, like we've outdone Thailand. Like we're the place.
Awesome.
We're if sex tourism come to America because there's all these South American girls that are available now.
Great.
Great. Congratulations, liberals. You did that.
Well, look, there's a couple other stats I wanted to pull up here because it sort of goes along with the numbers you were talking on. And these kind of memes I always sort of resist, but this one I couldn't at the time. On November 5th of 2020, this was a Facebook meme, so it's got to be true. on November 5th, 2020, mortgage rates are 2.75%. Gas is $1.80 a gallon. And people were posting it back then because we were posting it now to compare this.
What year again? Say that again. When?
November 5, 2020.
2020. Okay.
Election day.
Election day. Right.
Oh, I got
Right.
you.
So can you and think about that for a second? What has changed?
Everything.
No, but what change? I mean, what circumstances changed other than bad government policy?
That's right.
That would change that.
Right.
That is what happened.
Right.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
That is what
Like,
happened.
well, we didn't have a choice because of COVID. No, COVID was we were done with it.
Yeah.
It was over. It was all over but the shouting.
The stuff he did day one,
Immediately put the yoke on the oil and gas industries.
getting rid of Title 42.
Still going on.
Getting
Did you
rid
see
of
who's
Remain
our-
in Mexico.
Who's our oil and gas czar now? I forget her name, but now she's saying like
The ex-governor of Michigan, I can't think of her name either, but
right,
she's
put a moratorium. We're not producing any. Now look, Europe needs it.
Yeah, the CNG.
We have
Right,
it.
Right.
Right. Yes. Natural gas. Right.
Yeah.
Brett Baer
liquid
was
natural gas.
interviewing Zelensky from Ukraine, and he asked him about this CNG because what it's now going to free up is Europe is going to be buying CNG from Russia.
From Russia, right? And we could sell it to them.
So it's financing Putin's war machine.
Right? These people, it's so stupid. I mean, it's so insane.
And that was
Why?
Biden's big
because
move.
We're not going to contribute to the cleanest fuel source in the world.
Right. Let's cut them off.
Right.
Beautiful.
Like
Beautiful,
liquid
Joe.
natural gas. I mean, it's like it's clean, it burns clean. We've got it refined down to a science, but we're not going to contribute that. We're going to let Russia do it so they can get rich and we can't.
Right. And so they can finance the war.
And then they can finance the war that we are
backing out of.
supposedly against. Right. So it's like
we've invested $113 billion into that war, and there's now a bill, again, another new bill, another $60 billion that
now,
we
look,
want to give.
Changing, I can't help
I mean,
myself, Norm. I know you've got a list, but
go ahead, Matt.
But we're speaking of Biden's pen in politics. Did you see the latest on student loans? Now he's going to send an email.
Yes.
To I don't know how many kids.
$1.2 billion in forgiveness.
Right. And he's going to forgive their student loans. Like, if this isn't a political, and what's it cost to send that email? I wonder.
Well, this is his reelection Hail Mary pass.
Yes, but
that's
what's it
what
cost?
this
Is it is he using government funds to fund his campaign?
No doubt about it.
Well, yeah.
No doubt about
Well,
it.
Who's going to hit send?
And what's the ceiling? $12,000 that they've been trying to pay off for the last 10 years. Again, I get it. It's a loan. And it's 12,000 is 12,000, but
Right.
$12,000,
Right, to get your vote.
12,000. At this, we'll just shove that through with a pen.
And I would ask Mr. Biden this: if student lending is such this scourge of the earth, of the country,
Right.
why is the government still in that business?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Why are we still lending money?
It's your business. It's your business that's the evil.
You're doing it.
Right.
We're not giving 18-year-old plumbers and roofers and plaster, guys. We're not giving them vans and toolboxes, but we're giving people that want to go to college free stuff.
Right.
It's
Well,
like-
and it's not free as these kids wake up 5 years later.
Well,
And-
it is free for 1.2 billion
and
of
then
it now.
and then they owe all this money, and they're thinking, well, look, maybe my social science major with my Chinese art history minor isn't going to earn me very much money to
Right.
pay back
And
this money.
that is on them for not researching. I should not have gone to Harvard for this.
Right.
Well, those
To,
are the,
to get that degree. Maybe I could have
Exactly.
gone to a state school, a Columbus State, or
or I
nothing
could have
wrong
just
with those
opened
kind of
up my laptop and read about art history.
Maybe
These are the adult.
You have to look at what you're going to make with that degree,
Absolutely.
and I can't go to these schools that I owe 6 figures.
The school
That
of
is
hard
a stupid decision at the very beginning.
The school of hard knocks. This is part of becoming an adult.
Yes.
If you make bad decisions, you have to live with them.
Look,
yes.
love him or hate him, Dave Ramsey always says this. This is a stupid tax. Like you made a dumb financial decision.
Right.
Now you got to pay the tax.
Right.
And it's not just a tax. You're really then paying for your education because you've realized how dumb that was.
That's right.
And now you don't do it again.
Well, and
the first time you signed onto a car loan that
Right.
then the car you drove off
Skin
the lot.
in the game.
You got
Yes.
If
skin
you
in the
don't
game.
have skin in the game and you think the government's going to bail you out of your bad decisions, you're going to keep making bad decisions.
And we've set that bar now.
So if
we've
you're a
set that
parent-
bar that now, wait a minute, he's forgiving loans. Well, that's not going to stop.
Hey,
the gravy
maybe-
train's coming out of the
Maybe I don't have
out
to
the
pay
depot.
mine back
Yeah.
now.
Let's just and it's not even the students that are making the stupid decisions. It's the parents
It's
that
the
are
parents,
allowing
right?
that stupid decision to be
If
made.
you're a
Think
parent-
about the future.
If you're a parent and your kid is saying, no, but I really want to go out of state and I want to go out to California and go to
Right.
Pepperdine, or I want to go to, I want this fancy liberal arts college that costs 50, 60 grand a year. And you say no.
No.
Because you can go to Columbus State here for free for 2 years, transfer into Ohio State or some other state school and get full credit and get your sheepskin from the whatever university you finish at.
Yeah.
And it would cost like nothing. Like you wouldn't make this decision in any other area, right? Like I would never tell my kid, "Oh, I'm sorry, I know you really want the brand new Audi
Yeah.
with the turbo or whatever it would be.
Yeah.
But guess what? You're going to get the Malibu or you're going to get the
Right.
Civic that's 10 years old.
Or you buy, you can't have the new truck, but we're going to get you a 2006.
We're going to
truck.
get you a 2006 truck. I'm going through it right
Because-
now. Right. Nobody
Yeah.
would ever think twice. So why do you think that you are entitled as a child to go to the most expensive school for the quote experience, which really means getting drunk in the dorms with your buddies?
Well, you as a not child, actually.
As-
You as a young adult.
17, 18-year-old young adult, right?
Yeah.
It's absurd. And if you're a parent and that's pulling on your heartstrings, you need to reevaluate where your heartstrings
Well,
are.
universities are marketing themselves with the amenities. They're showing the lifestyle.
Look at the PEC or the physical
Look at our
education
upgraded
centers
dorm
and
rooms.
the dorms.
And look at the student activity
so
building.
who's making money?
Exactly.
The university. It's a business that the government has created.
The university
the
used
day
to
that
have to
Bill
go
Clinton-
collect
Yes.
student loans that weren't
The day
paid.
that Bill Clinton said everybody ought to have an education.
That's
so
right.
now it's right. Now
Like
we got
me.
free. Now everyone college is going to be loan. We're going to get. It's like awesome. So what did they do? The university started opening up. They created more avenues to sell their degrees. And as I used to say, as soon as that happened, your degree gets devalued. It's like printing money. If you print dollars, the $1 is worth less the more you print.
Yeah.
And now they started printing degrees. So your degree, Norm, is worth less than if your parents would have gotten the same degree.
Many educators have said that a college degree now is almost effectively what a high school diploma was like 50 or 60 years ago.
Yeah.
That the student basically has that kind of preparation by the end of 4 years of college.
It's what
like they're up to what a high school student used to have in the 50s.
This is the analogy I use for in my practice, criminal defense. Things like the sex offender registry, or things like just a DUI conviction now. They have become so ubiquitous, because it's become political to enforce certain things. That it has less value. So if you're on the sex offender registry right now, you could be on the sex offender registry if you're a juvenile and you had sex with your girlfriend, and it's like there's all sorts of people that are on the sex offender registry that I have represented that certainly did something wrong, but they are not danger to society going forward. Now, there are people who are dangers to society going forward, and maybe if you're going to have such a registry, they should have it. But over in the General Assembly on Capitol Hill here, or in the State House lawn, they're advocating for more. And the more people you put on it, the less value it has.
Hey, we just do a little star system. 1 star, 2 star. If you're a 5-star, you're really dangerous.
You're really bad.
1 star, he screwed up.
He was looking at Playboy.
She screwed up. Exactly.
I mean, now you can take courses in college now on, like musicians. Taylor Swift. I think there's actually a course on Taylor Swift at a university.
Oh, I'm sure.
I heard last week.
Look, I took children's literature as a senior in college, and there's actually some substance behind it. It was an English teacher. And
I wouldn't mind
we
that.
learned some interesting stuff.
Yeah,
sure. It was fast, and that was about as bubblegummy as it would have gotten.
Yeah.
Hansel and Gretel.
And now there's like pop culture classes, and it just is
Star Trek, the Beatles.
Yeah. Well, and to give some credit to that, though, I do have to say one thing. But this is a middle school class. I think I brought this up before, that my son went through a history of rock and roll class in middle school, and it actually taught him about the Vietnam War.
All right. Well, look.
And if it's done right, I think it'd be
exactly
a good
right.
class.
That's a great point. So you can take these.
I'd be in favor of teaching about the Vietnam War, frankly.
Well, look,
right,
Mark, here's the thing,
but he got it done
Here's
because
the thing.
we just never get there. I agree. I totally agree.
You're not
going to
take.
We don't.
Kids aren't going to take a class called Vietnam, and they're going to learn nothing about the Vietnam War, because they're going to see that and say no. Now, if you take 70s, 60s, 70s rock history as a backbone, and then use that as a jumping off point for Vietnam, at least maybe there's some value there.
Yeah, it became valuable, and it was eye opening. He's like, okay, this is cool, because they stop at the end of World War II. They never even take the next 3 weeks and go into Korea.
So they
never do.
So that kind of course, music about the Vietnam War is going to have Barry Maguire instead of Sergeant Barry Sadler. So you're going to get one side of the Vietnam War. You're going to get
possibly.
You're going to get the angry bitch.
You're going to get that in any class.
You don't know that.
You're going to get that.
You don't know that.
The guy who taught Vietnam when I went to college.
Brett, name all the pro-Vietnam songs from the 60s and 70s. There aren't any.
I understand that.
Except the ballad of the Green. That's it. That's the only one.
These are America's best.
I understand, but that doesn't mean that the
So what do you think they were teaching? Come on.
Detail.
Hey, I went to college.
Okay.
I know what professors
and
are like.
I lived that class through my son, and he learned about the Vietnam War through it.
Maybe you learned some facts.
I think we're both right. We're both right on
this. The birds,
this.
Creedence Clearwater. Come on, man.
Look,
I got it.
Look, if it opens up some doors where there's at least some substance about it, it's got some value. And look, you can see.
Of course.
Your argument is biased education about the Vietnam War. Well, that exists anywhere.
Exactly.
Right.
So, look,
for sure.
Exactly.
You might as well if you're going to get it, you might as well get it. Learn
and you
about
could get no more greater bias than talking to pop culture musicians. I mean, they're the worst.
Well, they're experts, aren't they?
Well, yeah.
They're the worst.
Sure.
Jane
Crosby,
Fonda? I mean,
Crosby, Stills, and Nash is why we don't have a nuclear industry in this country.
But you have to talk to actors and actresses, Norm, because Jane Fonda, she knew a lot about it.
We have not licensed a new nuclear reactor,
just like
in
Sean Penn,
45 years, right? And right now, what's our energy secretary say? Okay, we can't do coal, right? We can't do gas. We can't do CNG. Can't do propane. Can't burn wood, can't build a new hydroelectrical dam, right? Solar would take up 2 many square yards, and it's not going to pay back. So they financed Solyndra, and it went under, big scandal. So what the hell can we do for energy? Well,
we can buy it from Russia.
Jimmy Carter was right. Jimmy Carter with the breeder reactor and nuclear power was right. If we had nuclear power, right, we would have the cleanest air. right? And we wouldn't have any of these waste disposal problems because a breeder reactor reuses the waste.
Yeah, we've got that technology has advanced. I mean, we're not talking about the China syndrome anymore, right? We're not talking about Three Mile Island.
And we are literally committing national suicide on our energy policy. It's just ridiculous.
We could have as much,
and it's because of pop culture.
And
that was my point.
It could almost be free.
You call it, what was it called? Breeder what?
Breeder reactor.
Breeder reactors.
Jimmy Carter, who, by the way, was a nuclear engineer.
Was he really? I didn't know that.
He was trained by Admiral Rickover as part of the nuclear Navy. Jimmy Carter was a nuclear engineer for, like submarines, aircraft carriers.
Yeah.
He was probably the smartest president, or one of the, in terms of technical things. The fact that he, messed up some other stuff, but actually he was quite a great man. He is a great man, and he did a lot of...
An incredible guy, terrible president.
An incredible guy, and somebody just like Herbert Hoover, who was an engineer. Sometimes guys who have a messy administration, one or two things that they're in favor of may just be brilliant, and that was one of them. But because of the China Syndrome movie and all that kind of stuff, and pop culture, Bruce Springsteen... Graham Nash.
No nukes. Remember that concert?
No nukes, right? Okay, fine. Now we have
no power.
Now we have no power. Right. Gavin Newsom.
In so many different levels.
Gavin Newsom wants everybody in California to plug in their EV at night, but it would crash the system. There's no way to do it. Right. And that's why the CEO of Toyota came out and said EVs are not happening.
Well, and to that point, too, there's some, I don't have the article in front of me, but it was something I earmarked a while back that, there's some discussion in regards to reevaluating how much we pay for electric in Ohio.
Oh my God.
And a lot,
yes.
and a piece of that is stating because of the EV suckage, it's more power needed, and they need more money from us to invest in their development of electricity
to pay for their bad policy
because of more electrical vehicles on the road.
So insane.
And of course, one side saying, "Oh, that's bullshit. That's bullshit." It's like, dudes, where do you think this electric's coming from to charge your car at night?
If you plug it in, it's clean.
Yeah, right,
so,
right.
Just because you don't see it burn.
So let me just. When I was in college, I wrote concert reviews. Okay, so Graham Nash came to Cincinnati and went to university.
Norm's after the musicians today.
Yeah, well, no. So I interviewed Graham. Okay, he's a big friend of mine. So interviewed him about his no nukes stance because he's having a concert and during
Jackson Brown, Bruce Springsteen,
all of them.
It was
right.
It was
Joni Mitchell. Yeah. So during the breaks between songs, he's telling the audience why the Zimmer nuclear power plant, which was then under construction in Cincinnati along the Ohio River, that it should not be completed. It should be abandoned. And lo and behold, it was abandoned and turned into a coal gasification plant.
Which they've since closed.
But guess what? All of the ratepayers, and a ratepayer is you, Mr. and Mrs. Consumer, they all had to pay for it anyway.
Right.
Even though it was never used as a nuclear power plant, they had to pay for that. And basically, they had to pay twice. First, they built it as a nuclear power plant, and then they built it as a coal gasification plant.
To retrofit it. Yeah.
I mean, what a nightmare.
Wow.
What an absolute nightmare. And that's Ohio's energy policy.
Yeah.
It's just
that plant down there has been such a debacle.
It's such a debacle. Yeah. And I guess the one in Toledo, there's something with the containment, the nuclear plant up there, like the containment shell, the concrete.
The plug that you see when you're on Lake Erie.
Yeah, it was starting to leak. And, come on, guys, get your shit together.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
It's all right.
I know it hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts. And I don't know about you guys, but so I'm an all electric house. Man, it went nuts.
No, I am too. I have a condo that has no natural gas.
Oh yeah. Double my bill.
That's why I'm building a house. I'm going to go hide in the country and I'm going to
burn all the wood you want.
I'm not going to tell anybody how I get my power.
Oh my
Chipmunks
gosh.
on a on a belt.
Yeah. I'm going to build a mill.
You're gonna go Waltons on us. You're gonna go Waltons on us.
That's right. And create my own turbine.
So before the show, you had a great topic, which caught our attention too, about this AI thing at Google.
Mm.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve. I mean, preview that a little bit, or I can.
Yeah, you can look.
Yeah,
you
so
jump and I'll comment.
Google basically halted AI generation of images of people because
So absurd.
because the woke programmers. So this is the age-old thing computer people have said since the beginning of time: garbage in, garbage out. The programmers for AI, they can't help themselves. So because they are so desperate to demonstrate their virtuosity, they programmed in diverse images as like the default that comes up when you asked AI to generate a face. So you would say, show me an Elizabethan actor at Shakespeare's theater, right? Show me what an actor would look like doing, Romeo and Juliet, and it would show an African American or a South American.
Yeah, we're not talking about
person.
Othello. We're talking about
No, we're talking about people who are Caucasian, by virtue
historical figures. One of them said, "Show us what the
George Washington
the
or
King of France,"
exactly,
and it was a black dude.
It's so
Look, and I don't care if a black dude were a king of France. It doesn't make any difference to me, except it never happened.
It's historically incorrect.
It never happened.
Right.
Right. And it's like, and why would it? Because
dude.
was France.
We're out of control. So, like, if Norm ran Google's AI department, okay, this is how I would program things. I would simply say, for any given period of time and location, if we have statistical, factual information about the frequency of various cultures and races, then, like for America right now, blacks are 13% of the population. So if you just put in a very vague thing, show me an American citizen, 13% of the time, I would have my AI program show a black person because that would be statistically accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Like 1 out of 8 times up comes an
or look,
African
or
American.
you could just show a representative sample.
Well, then you would be showing multiple. But if you ask them, show me an
a single,
American.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
So,
I mean, I would just do it that way. Like, that would be
the
accurate.
problem with their AI was that it would never show a white guy.
Exactly right.
It's just no matter what you asked, it wouldn't show a white guy.
Nor would it show white people, whatever a white person is. So people always,
now we know.
think it's funny.
Norm's a
Obama is just as much white as black. So I count him as a white guy. Obama's a white guy to me as much as a black guy. So what is a white person?
right.
We can go
to
down
get
that
it- you have
route.
to- right.
Exactly.
This is the problem with when you start
This is a
monkeying
problem.
with definitions.
Right. I don't know what a white person is. I really don't know what a black person is. And I don't care. Frankly, I don't care.
Well, then
they're all people,
when
and I love
asked-
them all.
When asked to show a white guy,
Yeah.
it threw up an objection, like this is biased or racist.
Right.
We're not going to produce. Now, asked to show a black guy, it'll do that.
So this is
But
Black
not a white
History,
guy.
Black History Month. If you said, show me a list of black achievements by Americans, in the last 100 years, there'd be a huge long list. If you ask that same question about Caucasians, it will not
won't show you
answer.
anything.
It will not answer the question.
And now, what if it said, show me a slave owner? I wonder if it would show a white
black
guy.
Well, there were black slave owners.
I know, but I wonder if it would show a white guy if you asked that.
Good question. I don't know. But Google has shit canned that program because it's absurd. What they did was absurd, and it's based on
But
bias.
look where this is going. Look at the danger of this.
It is very
because
dangerous.
you are putting our history in the hands of people who want to rewrite it. And
or in some cases, yes, or people who are just plain dumb.
or don't know that.
Well,
There are very dumb people.
But look, I think here people know the actual history because look, it doesn't take anybody with any intellect to know there was probably not a black king of France,
Probably not.
right?
Yeah.
During the Kingdom of France.
Right.
But if you're basing your history unbeknownst, it's like, oh, I'm going to search it up, and you see it, you believe it.
Now you start to believe it, right?
Depends on your age.
You're rewriting history.
Right.
We're rewriting
Yeah.
history to fit the current narrative.
We're
How much more? How much more Orwellian does that get?
We're even taking fictional things and making and transmogrifying that into history. For example, at the Academy Awards, a young lady got to the microphone when that crazy movie Black Panther won some kind of Oscar or whatever it was. And she got up there and she said, finally, and she's got her fist in the air, finally they made a movie about our people. And I'm like, honey, you know Wakanda never existed, right? Like that wasn't about,
it was total fiction.
It wasn't about Africans. It wasn't about, it's about another planet, you know, like
Right, it was fiction.
It's science fiction. They didn't make a movie about your people. That's as much, that would be like saying, I don't
And there's
know.
plenty of movies.
Flash Gordon's about white
It's not
people.
only wrong, it's wrong.
Oh my God.
Right? It's not only
Right,
It's not only
she's
wrong. It's right. There's
wrong.
plenty of movies
That's right.
about Black history. Plenty.
Yeah, The Color Purple, Roots, any number
Yeah.
of wonderful,
And
beautiful.
they're great.
They're great.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
what was the one about Jesse Owens that just came out? I love that movie.
Great movie. Right.
Yeah. Running.
Jackie,
or something.
50 or 42.
Oh, 42.
Yeah.
Great.
Great movie.
Great,
Yeah.
great flick.
Great movie. I mean,
So,
just
like, what are we doing here?
yeah. It's
About your people.
It's just people are buying. It's sort of what your point is, Brett.
Yeah.
People are buying the narrative because that's all they search Google, and you can no longer be confident in what you're getting from a Google search.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Steve, can I throw you a legal thing? Because
Sure.
you being an attorney, your views are so precious on this show. A very disturbing denial of cert, in my opinion, disturbing, and certainly Judge Alito and Judge Thomas thought it was disturbing. If the Supreme Court could not get a third justice to grant cert on a Virginia high school case, which contained the exact same fact pattern as the Harvard University of North Carolina case, overturning racial discrimination for admissions. And so a group of Asian parents got together and sued the high school because the high school created a pre-admission diversity socioeconomic criteria that would hopefully increase the number of Black and brown-skinned kids into the high school. Certainly a worthy goal, but they were leapfrogging over other people who had meritorious claims like testing scores and
Sure.
and grade averages. And so they wanted the Fourth Circuit upheld the school district's admissions policy, which flew in the face of Justice Roberts' opinion in the Harvard University of North Carolina case that said you couldn't even do essays as a way around to try to do racial discrimination and like contain within the essay little hints that this person is a certain color and so you're going to pick them. Roberts said you can't even do that. But they turned down cert on this case. And Alito said, now what we're going to have is complete chaos. Like now what we have is a whole mess because the Supreme Court is not even taking up, like they're not even going to reinforce their own landmark decision. And Alito he's warning that we're in for probably until another case is ripe and represents, we're in for another 15, 20 years of this crazy affirmative action chaos.
So cert, it's an interesting thing. So when we say granted cert, what we're talking about is the U.S. Supreme Court granting certiorari, I think is the right way to say it. So what they really, what you need to understand is the U.S. Supreme Court is a discretionary court. The court, you can't just say, I'm taking my case all the way to the Supreme Court and expect the U.S. Supreme Court to actually hear it. So it is a discretionary review, meaning they have to decide, the court has to decide if it wants to butt in and take the case and offer its opinion on it. There are some exceptions to that it will take certain cases, it has to. But in this situation, this is discretionary review. So people file what's called a petition for certiorari. They ask the court, they say, here, court, this is such a significant issue that we need you to weigh in on it. It has broad-reaching impact beyond just the scope of this case. We want to make some law. you can think of the landmark cases on First Amendment, on freedom of religion, which is also First Amendment, but abortion and all these cases. These are cases that extend beyond the facts and the lives that are at stake in the litigation. So please don't be offended, but the Supreme Court doesn't care about you.
It has to have major reverberations across the country.
Now, there's some exceptions. So if there's a death penalty case or there's somebody who's going to die and it's got some, that might be a little bit of an exception. But, generally they're looking for broad-reaching issues to weigh in on. And incidentally, most state courts have a Supreme Court or the highest court. They don't always call it a Supreme Court. In fact, New York has it all reversed. But most states have something similar. Ohio has something called a memorandum in support of jurisdiction, meaning I'm asking the Ohio Supreme Court to accept jurisdiction over the case. Then if they do, we really get down to brass tacks, and then we have to file our briefs, we have to file our arguments. And in cases like Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court even came back and said, file more stuff. We need to hear more. And they can allow more argument. They can do all sorts of stuff once they take the case. So now you would ask, what's a case? What's a worthy case and what's not? It takes 4 votes to get for the court to vote or for the court to grant cert. So you would wonder here why that didn't happen, and I don't know why it didn't happen. I don't have the crystal ball, and I haven't studied this, but there are reasons why it might not have happened.
Yeah, they did deny it without comment.
They typically do. They typically do. So you file your petition for cert,
except for Alito,
and then you get sometimes they'll give you some answer, but they typically do. So sometimes you'll get one judge saying I would have granted cert, and that's it.
Yeah.
But they didn't get 4, and there's certainly 4 conservative justices, actually
3 Trumpers there.
That could have weighed in on it. So now you would wonder why. It's not just that it might that we have to wait 15 years. It might be they're watching another case. It might be that there's something else percolating up that they know is going to either solve this issue directly, or this issue plus it's got a better fact pattern to do what they want. That stuff goes on.
Let me throw this, Steve. So Alito indicated that, in his opinion, the only fact pattern or the only fact that's really different between this and the landmark case, the Virginia case being high school students, and the landmark case being
college.
Yeah.
But that's significant, or there might be a different distinction, like between a private college and a public college. It might be a private high school.
This was a public school.
So you could say there's an argument called judicial restraint, where if the court doesn't need to weigh in, if it's just impacting only the litigants at hand, then there's an argument that the court should not allocate its time to solve that problem. And it sucks when you're the litigant at hand and the court's just not following the law. And you made a point, Norm. I don't know if you were making it, but what you were saying is this is problematic, because if we are going to permit circuit courts to just not follow the law, I mean, just to say, you know what, I don't care what the law is, we're not going to follow it, we're going to uphold this, or we're not going to uphold this, whatever the situation would be, and is in direct contradiction to Supreme Court precedent, you're left with a right without a remedy, as we would say.
And it's a very recent precedent.
And it's a recent precedent. Now, so the court may say, look, we're not going to take this on again. It doesn't matter. It's not a big enough cause, but it is setting a precedent in a sense to say we don't have to follow this, and the court's not going to stop us.
This particular school was ranked number 1 in the country. It was the top high school in the country last year. This year, the second highest in the country.
Well, there's other stuff going on,
and these
too.
Asian parents, right, just like Harvard and Yale, they want their kids to get into the best, God bless them.
There's other stuff going on. So I'm going to offer some solace here in a second. But generally speaking, the court is going to take cases that have a broader reaching scope than just the litigants at hand. And it may be, like I said, there may be other cases they're watching that are coming up that they can say they can handle this problem plus more. It might be that there's another distinction, like a different type of university, or a different type of admission requirement that gives them a platform to do more with it.
So can I whine a little bit?
Sure.
So you remember when this case was decided, we were doing a show.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I expressed my frustration that instead of just striking down affirmative action across the board, like in hiring, in promotion, in high school, they limited that landmark case to colleges and universities. And that really frustrated me. And that's what Alito is saying, is that this affirmative action thing is really a poison. And in his dissent of turning down cert, he specifically gave the example of, say, a basketball team that is predominantly are all black because of the merit. In other words, those are the best.
You could reverse that. I mean, there's a world
That's
where this
what
all
he's
gets
saying.
reversed.
He's saying, well, what if a white parent goes to the coach and says, hey, dude.
Well, we're going to get back to this sort of redefining terms, because the term discrimination or racism has been redefined.
Yes.
Because it doesn't mean just discrimination based on color. It means discrimination based on color against those who have traditionally had the power structure against them, or they add some nonsense that makes it okay to discriminate against white folks, just like the Google AI. And Brett's got his words of the day that's sort of like redefining words. But there's some solace here, Norm, because if you follow, there's other news where, was it Princeton? All these schools who, after the Black Lives Matter riots and all the George Floyd stuff, started getting rid of the ACTs and the SATs as admission requirements. Oh. Now they're coming back, because what's happened is those become the standards by which the universities are judged. So if you're not letting people in who are capable, it lowers the tide for everybody.
Yeah.
And I would say this, I used to sort of I used to make two comments sort of in jest. And it reflects how young and ignorant I was. One, I could go run that company. I could do that. And I hear other people say, that guy, he doesn't deserve, $2 million a year for his job. Right. And then when you see what that job really is, I realize, no, I couldn't do that job.
Yeah.
Not only that, I don't want that job.
Yeah, like recently it came out that the Walmart managers in the big cities make as much as $400,000 a year.
Yeah.
Well, my God, who would want to be a Walmart manager?
Or if you're, a
any city.
Can you imagine?
I know.
Or a multinational company where you're up all night long, like dealing with markets overseas. I mean, I don't want that job. And then the pressure and the stress. I mean, you have to be a certain personality type to be able to do those jobs.
100%.
The other comment I used to make is, well, I could have gone to Harvard Law School and I could have done it. I mean, you know what? Right? Because you're weighed against people who have different intellectual capacities, experiences, and educations. I mean, look, I think I have a very good legal mind, and I've sharpened it as much as I possibly can, and I continue to do that. But could I have competed at the same level with the best of the best of the best of the best? I don't know, but it wouldn't have been prudent for me to even try, because look, my LSAT, my pre-law admittance, I would not have ever in a million years gotten into Harvard because it was low.
So we both went to law school. I did not become a lawyer, but we both have degrees.
Yep.
My experience in law school, so like I skated through undergraduate, right? Like I could read a book the night before, ace the exam. You know what I mean? Your typical, I was working 40, 45 hours a week at Kroger, put myself through college, paying my own tuition. And, would kind of skate through. And I graduated magna cum laude. It really didn't, I worked hard, but I didn't have to work that hard. Mm-hmm. So I go into law school, man, thinking I'm a big dog.
Yeah.
Dude.
The great equalizer.
Dude, in law school, they're all big dogs.
So it's like,
they're all brilliant.
It's like
and
this.
you find out you're in a small barrel of like barracudas.
You're a little chihuahua.
Oh, they will chew you up. It doesn't mean that they're better lawyers.
Up.
It doesn't mean that they're better lawyers.
That's right.
Now, but it may mean that
they're all brilliant.
They're all brilliant. They're all willing to stay up all night and work their tails off all night long, and they're all willing to do all the stuff. And and I wouldn't have wanted that looking back.
But they found their lane. That's where they love it. So let them play there.
I'm a good trial lawyer. I'm great at what I do, I think, and I like what I do, and I've got the educational background to do it. But it doesn't mean that everybody should go to Harvard.
No,
it just doesn't.
No,
and it would have been foolish to think otherwise.
Oh yeah. I would not have survived. I barely survived the University of Cincinnati's law school.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, man, those guys crushed me. I didn't
it's
know
the real deal.
I did not know what hard work was.
When I played high school football, I always said it this way. It's like when I played high school football, I was a pretty good offensive lineman. Everybody, I can't remember one scenario where like somebody really gave me trouble throughout a game. I could always sort of handle the guy I was supposed to block. And then I went to college and played football.
Yeah.
And everybody was like me.
Yeah, they're badasses.
Except even better.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, wait a second. Anybody who's played offensive line or played football, like lined up, I mean, not necessarily running back, but lined up against somebody. Yeah. You every now and then you run into a guy who just knows how to hit. He knows what he's doing and how to hit. And it's like, all right, that sort of sets a tone. I gotta up my act for this game. In college, everybody was that way, and then it sort of increased it. And then I can't imagine what it would have been like going to a D1 college or even pro. So it's like we're not all equal is the point.
Yeah.
Right? We're not all equal. And just because you're good in one avenue doesn't mean you're good in the other. And if these schools eliminate a hierarchical, meritorious structure, then they're going to get what they deserve. They're going to lose their status in the world. So if these Ivy Leagues aren't requiring SATs or any sort of standardized testing for people to get in, they're going to let in people who aren't qualified.
Right.
All right, fine.
Yeah.
But then the people who hire from those schools are going to start to realize,
yeah.
All right, this guy's not the person that came from Harvard 10 years ago. Or
this
20
is like
years ago.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
You're
doing pass fail.
It's like, that's my head.
Hey, can I?
I'm so wasted.
We're short on time. Can I throw out kind of a fun?
Yeah,
this is a cultural thing.
And then we got Brett's word of the day.
Yeah, and Brett's word of the day to close us out. You guys will love this. I mean, this comes under the no shit category. So a group of Stanford University Medical Center researchers just came out with a paper, and guess what they found? That men and women have different physical brains, and their brains work differently.
No shit.
No shit. Is that new?
Imagine that.
Imagine like
As we three have three different brains, and they work differently.
I mean,
yeah.
The only people that this will be news to, right, are the people who are trying to brainwash us, no pun intended, into the idea that we're all identical.
Look,
we're not.
I truly mean this, not as a taking the Lord's name in vain, but thank God for that.
Thank God for that.
Oh yeah,
because
thank God for that.
God created both.
That's right.
Because of the complementary interaction between both.
Right.
If every woman were like a man and every man were like a woman,
oh God,
we'd be a ridiculous society. It's almost like what we're trying to achieve.
It's see, so the transy kind of idea that we're genderless.
And what I've seen is
we're not hermaphrodites. And they're men and they're women, and they're different.
And what I've seen on going both ways, when men try to act like women, they sort of take like the caricature of those traits. It's not even genuine. Like
that's
what's
a
his
good point.
name? The Bud Light guy.
Right. Yeah, because it's not even defining a new role. At all.
You're
it's
stealing
like you're
somebody else's
You're going in this direction with
identity.
it.
Like if I'm trying to emulate a woman, guys tend to choose like ridiculous qualities of women, right? Frolicking around and doing stupid and acting effeminate and doing. That's not the woman that I'm attracted to.
And you're describing the new wave of what's going to happen, probably.
That's right. And then
there will be a whole different.
So the opposite is also true, though. Women who want to act like guys, they don't emulate the qualities that I believe make a good man, which is like, come home to your wife, meet your obligations and responsibilities. Don't go sleep around. Don't be a philanderer, the same thing, I suppose. It's like women say, well, guys do that. I should be able to do that. It's like, no, I don't do that. I don't.
Yeah.
So like the feminists who want to act like men, they're taking the worst qualities and acting like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, what are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's dangerous too. There was that basketball game that got called off early because a boy who thinks he's a girl, this just happened this week, injured 3 girls in a row. And the team forfeited, the team with the injured girls. They just said, hey, listen, he's a dude. Like, he's a dude. The fact that
we're getting injured.
He's just asserting. He even looks like a dude, short hair, the whole thing. He's just asserting, I'm a chick. He just says, I'm a chick.
I'm going to go beat up the girls on a basketball floor. Look, I feel bad for the guy if he thinks he's a chick. I mean, it's a horrible thing to experience. I get it.
My God.
But it doesn't mean that he should be allowed to play basketball against other girls, other teenage girls. That's insane.
Or Leah Thomas wants to go
have a choice.
To
These
the
girls
Olympics.
don't have a choice, right?
As a swimmer.
If there was a league where people had a choice, I don't care if it's look, we've all been involved in co-ed intramural sports.
Oh, yeah, right.
In college, I played in a couple co-ed. It changes how I behave on the playing field.
For sure. If you're a good person, it should.
I'm not going to just level a softball as fast as I can or hit it as hard as I can directly at a girl.
So our law firm, when I was clerking, not a lawyer, but my dad's law firm had a case. Now this is a long time ago, and it's co-ed softball, right? And this guy doing a Pete Rose headfirst slide right into a woman, right? And just blows her up. She's got injuries. Mm-hmm. And his defense is, hey, we all agree. This co-ed, right? We're playing. And it's like, dude.
Well, you can see it both ways.
You can see the conflict. He's thinking, I'm playing against them.
I'm winning.
Just like I would play against a man. And the other guys are like, dude,
It's co-ed.
It's co-ed. Like, tone it down.
It does.
Right.
It's unspoken almost that when you're playing in a co-ed league, I'm not going all out to kick the living crap out of you.
Right.
I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And
because we all want to go have a beer.
What nobody wants to hear anymore is that I could.
That's right.
I could.
That's right.
Right. Now, I'm not saying I could beat the best women's golfer.
No.
But sort of the worst male golf pro would be, or this has been proven in tennis, right? The worst male tennis pro
just about to get to
would
that.
beat the best female tennis
You're
pro.
too young to remember the Bobby Riggs versus Billie Jean King tournament.
I know the story.
Okay,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So 55-year-old guy who was in 1939 the best tennis player in the world. Like he won Wimbledon, everything. Bobby Riggs. Now he's 55 in 1973. 30,000 people in the Houston Astrodome to see him play Billie Jean King, who at the time was 29. She beat him in 3 sets, like 6-3, 6-3, 6-3, right? And people took from that lesson that somehow men and women are equal.
Right.
And it's like Jimmy Connors said the next day, I'll play Billie Jean.
Oh, of course, right?
Right? Like if you want to see a guy who's 29 play a girl
apples
who's
to apples. And McEnroe got in trouble. Remember, I forget what the morning show. He was interviewed on a morning show.
Yeah.
Like, who do you think the greatest tennis player is? And he named men, and they like no women. And he's like, no.
What am I supposed to say here?
Now, I mean, if you want the greatest women's tennis player, I'll tell you that.
Yes.
But it's like, don't pretend like the best women's tennis player of all time is going to beat the best men's tennis player of all time.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
No.
And it's okay that it doesn't.
It's
Right.
totally
That's
okay.
why we have different rules.
Right. And I would go to a womenmen's golf tournament and enjoy the hell
I
out
have,
of
and
it
Albany has
because
one.
of great competition.
Right.
And
Well, but
look-
Columbus now has its first professional women's volleyball
I saw
team,
that,
Columbus Fury. If you're 9,000 people came to the
Awesome.
Open Grand.
Women's volleyball.
Freaking
My
great
niece,
game.
my niece plays at.
Oh my God.
So
That
it's
was
not
great.
about hating women's sports. at
My
all.
niece plays at Alabama, women's volleyball.
Wow.
And it's fun to watch.
Wow.
They're really, really good. You know, it's like
I'll
they,
bet.
they, the passing and the
Oh,
skill that
it's
goes into it. It's really
amazing.
good.
Sure.
And, I don't mind that. And, people used to argue, like, people sort of scoff at the women's NBA or the women's professional basketball.
Right.
But look, I mean, watching a good female basketball team is sort of interesting because they can't do what the guys do. They're not dunking, they're not doing these things.
They're playing real
They're
basketball.
They're setting up like old school plays.
Exactly.
Right.
They're
There's
playing
some interest.
basketball.
If you're interested in that,
yeah,
it's
not
fun
the
to watch.
showboating crap.
That's
It's
very interesting,
basketball.
Steve.
Yeah,
I
it's
never
fun to
thought
watch.
of that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
really cool.
They set up plays. They have to because they're not
Yes.
jumping 5 feet in the air to dunk the ball.
That's really
behind
cool.
their backs.
Never
Yeah.
thought of that. I'm not a basketball guy, but
Yeah.
that's really a great insight.
Yeah, it's actual basketball. It's sort of like my argument against pro football. It's like I used to argue that real football happens on Saturday afternoons
it
on
does.
small college campuses.
Yeah.
Because it's not everybody is perfect. Not everybody's the superstar.
Yeah.
It's sort of fun. But
And you
it's
don't
different.
have 4 350-pound guys like on the front line.
Exactly.
Right. And maybe it's the difference between reading like a history book versus like watching Rambo. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
it's got they both have some interest, but they're not the same.
Playing, and they're playing for different reasons too.
Rambo.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Vietnam history. I was trying to go back to
Vietnam
history.
history. Boy, there you
I
go.
was trying to
Jeez,
cut, circle it. See what I
Or
did?
the Chuck Norris ones where he would go back.
Uncommon
Jeez.
valor.
Oh my
for
God,
God's
yeah.
sakes.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Anyway,
Yeah.
all right. Well, we got to wrap it up. This has been a
Yeah.
long.
Now, the word of the day. We just talked about this when we came in. It's like this whole week just went by. For some reason, both Steve and I said that. So the word you can use now is Blur's Day, a day not easily distinguished from other days or the phenomenon of days running together. So it's been a Blur's Day week.
That is a product of young kids learning how to adult.
Yes.
Right.
Blur's Day.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to wrap it up. CommonSenseOhioShow.com if you want to check it out. Brought to you by Harper Plus Accounting. Coming at you week in, week out. We've got guests coming in. We got guests coming out. We got all sorts of stuff happening. But for those who have followed us, know that we record right here at the Round Table on channel 511 at our studios. If you think you got the chops to have your own podcast, we can help. All you have to do is go to channel511.com. Now you just click on a calendar day, and our studio producers will meet you down here and help you with your podcast. So you will be, and
it's quite reasonable.
It's quite reasonable, right? The rates are reasonable. We're making it turnkey. You leave with your own podcast. If you need some additional help on what to say, how to say it, and where to put it, and all that stuff, we can offer that too. By and large, that stuff is like the easy stuff's included, but we've got a whole range of services. So if you want to record your own podcast, and let me tell you something, when I first sat, everybody's got the same sort of reaction. When you first sit down at the round table, stick on the headphones, talking to the RE20s, it makes a difference. It makes it feel real, because it is. This is professional, folks. Anyway, with that, we'll wrap it up. CommonSenseOhioShow.com, coming at you right from the middle, at least until now.